Deep within the heavily fortified walls of the Tower of London sits a stone of unfathomable beauty and terrible power. It is a jewel forged in ancient earth and bathed in centuries of warm blood. Visitors stare at its brilliant facets, completely unaware of the malicious shadow it casts over history. This is the Mountain of Light, a grim Hindu text dating back many centuries, offers a chilling prophecy regarding this massive diamond. It states that whoever owns this jewel will dominate the world, but will also suffer all of its deepest misfortunes. The ancient warning carries a specific condition. Only a woman or a divine being can wear it without inviting utter destruction. This is not merely a myth concocted to frighten thieves away from royal treasuries. It is a documented curse that has systematically annihilated mighty emperors and crushed vast empires across continents. The cursed diamond leaves a trail of madness and assassination and unimaginable grief. Every male ruler who possessed it eventually met a truly horrific fate. To understand the genesis of this spectral torment, we must journey back to the sweltering alluvial mines of southern India. Legends claim the stone was discovered shining brightly in a muddy riverbed thousands of years ago. From the moment it was pulled from the earth, a dark energy awakened. The first unlucky owners were the Kakatiya kings. The Kakatiya dynasty ruled over a prosperous domain and placed the majestic gem into the eye of a revered temple goddess. They believed the diamond would grant them eternal protection from foreign invaders. Instead, the stone functioned as a beacon for catastrophe. Whispers of the gigantic jewel reached the ruthless armies of the Delhi Sultanate very quickly. General Malik Kafur arrived with a massive army and completely decimated the peaceful kingdom. The glorious temple was violently looted, and the magnificent diamond was ripped from the statue. The dynasty collapsed into absolute ruin almost overnight. The curse had tasted its very first royal victim, and a terrifying hunger for male rulers had officially commenced. For generations, the great gem vanished into the murky treasuries of the Delhi Sultanate. During this long period, the ruling dynasty experienced relentless betrayals and bloody successions. Brothers murdered brothers, and fathers were poisoned by their own ambitious sons. The diamond sat silently in the dark vaults, radiating a malevolent influence over the fragile throne of Delhi. Then came the brilliant warrior, Zahiruddin Mohammad Babur, who founded the vast Mughal Empire. Babur conquered the region and claimed the magnificent diamond as the ultimate spoil of war. He praised its immense value, stating it could feed the entire world for 2 days. However, Babur soon fell mysteriously ill and died, leaving his empire incredibly unstable. His son Humayun inherited the throne and the beautiful but deadly jewel. Humayun was quickly defeated in battle forced into a miserable exile. He lost his glorious kingdom and wandered the harsh wilderness for over a decade. The curse ensured that any man who tried to secure his legacy with the stone would see it shatter. Decades later, the Mughal Empire reached its absolute pinnacle under the rule of Shah Jahan. He was an emperor obsessed with breathtaking beauty and infinite wealth. Ignoring the ancient warnings, he commanded his finest jewelers to embed the legendary diamond directly into his magnificent peacock throne. The throne was a dazzling masterpiece covered in rubies and emeralds. Shah Jahan sat proudly upon the peacock throne, completely surrounded by unimaginable splendor. He firmly believed the diamond symbolized his eternal divine right to rule over the earth. But the sinister jewel possessed a very different plan. The curse crept into the mind of his ambitious son, Aurangzeb, who aggressively plotted to seize total control of the empire. Aurangzeb ruthlessly executed his own brothers and overthrew his aging father. Shah Jahan was stripped of his glorious throne and locked inside a grim fortress in Agra. The tragic former emperor spent the final years of his life gazing mournfully through a small barred window. The dazzling diamond had reduced the most powerful man to a miserable prisoner. The Mughal Empire slowly rotted from within after the tragic death of Shah Jahan. The magnificent stone remained firmly attached to the opulent throne, but the rulers grew increasingly weak and paranoid. The dark energy of the diamond slowly drained the vitality of the royal lineage. A new terrifying conqueror was already marching toward the glittering city. Nader Shah of Persia invaded Delhi with overwhelming force and slaughtered thousands of innocent citizens. The desperate Mughal emperor pleaded for mercy and surrendered all of his spectacular wealth. Nader Shah spotted the massive diamond sparkling brilliantly amidst the plundered treasures. He was utterly captivated by its mesmerizing light and joyfully proclaimed it the Mountain of Light. The Persian conqueror took the Koh-i-Noor back to his homeland, believing it would solidify his supreme power. Instead, the terrible curse immediately fractured his mind. Nader Shah became violently paranoid and ordered the brutal blinding of his own beloved son. His once loyal guards eventually grew terrified of his rampant madness and assassinated him in his tent. The majestic diamond did not linger with the crumbling Persian Empire for very long. It passed to Ahmad Shah Durrani, who established a powerful Afghan empire. He wore the jewel proudly as a potent symbol of his absolute authority, just like the men before him. Ahmad Shah suffered a horrific decaying disease that slowly ate away his face. Following his gruesome demise, the diamond sparked a vicious cycle of mutilation and betrayal among the Afghan princes. Brothers blinded each other and viciously tortured their own relatives to claim the glittering prize. The royal court transformed into a horrifying slaughterhouse. The jewel fed on their greed and continually destroyed the men who desperately fought to possess it. Fleeing the endless bloodshed, a deposed Afghan king carried the cursed stone to the majestic court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The Maharaja was a brilliant tactician who had built the mighty Sikh empire. He eagerly accepted the famous diamond in exchange for political sanctuary. Ranjit Singh firmly believed his incredible destiny could conquer the ancient sinister magic entirely. The Maharaja proudly wore the huge gem bound to his muscular arm during lavish state ceremonies. It flashed brilliantly in the bright sunlight, reflecting his immense wealth and formidable military strength. But the unseen shadow of the curse slowly wrapped around the royal palace. A mysterious illness soon struck the seemingly invincible ruler, leaving him paralyzed and mute. As Ranjit Singh lay dying, his terrified courtiers whispered about the terrible ancient prophecy. They begged him to donate the cursed diamond to a holy temple to break the spell. The Maharaja weakly nodded his consent, but his greedy ministers blatantly ignored his final dying wish. They kept the magnificent stone locked securely inside the royal treasury instead. That singular decision sealed the grim fate of the mighty Sikh empire permanently. Following the death of the great Maharaja, a chaotic storm of assassinations swept through the opulent palace. His first son was poisoned, and a second son was tragically crushed to death by a falling archway. The royal lineage was being systematically erased by unseen hands. The horrific violence continued relentlessly until only a tiny innocent boy remained alive to inherit the throne. His name was Duleep Singh, and he was merely 5 years old when he became the supreme ruler of the empire. His fragile hands could barely lift the heavy golden jewelry of his royal ancestors. The diamond now belonged to a child. While the young boy played inside the peaceful palace gardens, the British East India Company aggressively advanced its military forces. The British wanted complete control over the wealthy region and completely decimated the disorganized Sikh armies. The desperate mother of the boy tried to protect her kingdom, but was forcefully imprisoned in a dark and lonely stone tower. The young boy Duleep Singh wept bitterly as he handed over the magnificent glowing stone to the harsh British commanders. He did not fully understand the immense historical significance of the massive glittering object leaving his tiny hands. He only knew that his beloved family was entirely destroyed, and his vast kingdom was gone forever. The grim curse smiled silently. The victorious British officials forced the terrified child king to sign a formal legal document. The treaty demanded the complete surrender of his entire kingdom and his absolute submission to the British crown. Hidden within the rigid text was a very specific demand. The legendary diamond must be surrendered to Queen Victoria as a permanent spoil of war. Lord Dalhousie was the ambitious British governor who orchestrated the entire theft. He was extremely arrogant and openly mocked the ancient, terrifying stories surrounding the famous jewel. He wanted the glory of presenting the most valuable diamond in the world to the Queen. He completely ignored the dark spiritual weight of the object he had just violently stolen. Dalhousie carefully sewed the massive diamond into a small secret pocket attached to his heavy leather belt. He kept it hidden from the world as he traveled toward the waiting ships. However, he soon fell incredibly ill with a strange, debilitating fever. The ancient curse was beginning to test the physical resilience of its newest, arrogant male captor. The precious cargo was eventually loaded onto a British ship named the Medea. The captain locked the jewel securely inside an iron safe beneath the wooden floorboards. Almost immediately, an oppressive supernatural gloom settled heavily over the entire sailing vessel. The crew felt a chilling, unseen presence watching them from the dark corners of the damp lower decks. Tragedy struck the ship mere days into the long ocean voyage toward Britain. A devastating outbreak of cholera suddenly swept through the cramped quarters, causing horrific suffering and numerous sudden deaths. The crew members desperately threw the contagious bodies overboard into the dark, swirling waters. Panic spread quickly as the terrified sailors realized something deeply evil was aboard. Just as the sickness began to subside, a massive, violent storm violently battered the wooden ship. Black clouds blocked the sun, and towering rogue waves crashed heavily against the fragile deck. The terrified captain considered throwing the cursed diamond directly into the churning ocean to save his men. Only sheer luck allowed the battered ship to finally reach port. The cursed stone had finally arrived on British soil, bringing its dark, ancient legacy into a completely new empire. It was taken directly to Buckingham Palace under heavy armed guard. When the small protective box was finally opened, the royal courtiers gasped in genuine awe. The massive, brilliant jewel radiated a strange, mesmerizing light in the quiet room. Queen Victoria eagerly examined the magnificent spoil of war. She found the ancient diamond completely fascinating, but somewhat disappointing in its raw, original cut. She quickly ordered her royal husband, Prince Albert, to supervise the intricate recutting of the massive gem. Albert eagerly accepted the important task, completely unaware of the deadly shadow falling over his own life. Prince Albert spent endless days obsessively watching the skilled jewelers grind away the ancient facets of the legendary stone. He wanted the gem to sparkle with modern, brilliant perfection. The rigorous cutting process heavily reduced the original weight of the massive diamond. The stone lost nearly half its size, but its terrifying supernatural malice remained completely fully intact. The delicate cutting process took several grueling weeks to finally complete under intense, heavy supervision. When the newly faceted diamond was fully revealed, it blazed with a fierce and blinding, unnatural inner fire. Prince Albert was completely exhausted and physically drained by the demanding, meticulous project. The ancient stone had secretly fed upon his robust health during those long hours. Queen Victoria proudly wore the newly polished jewel as a glittering brooch upon her regal dresses. She was a powerful woman, and the ancient Hindu prophecy clearly stated a woman could wear it safely. However, the men closely associated with the diamond were completely unprotected. Prince Albert suddenly fell gravely ill with a highly mysterious and devastating fever. The royal doctors were completely baffled by the rapid physical decline of the beloved prince. The fever burned relentlessly through his body, causing severe delirium and agonizing pain. Queen Victoria sat helplessly by his bedside, weeping terribly as her beloved husband slowly faded away. Prince Albert died at a shockingly young age, plunging the entire British nation into mourning. Lord Dalhousie, the ambitious British official who had originally stolen the jewel, also faced a truly wretched fate. He returned to Britain, completely broken in body and spirit. A strange, lingering sickness ravaged his nervous system and slowly destroyed his mobility. He spent his final painful years in complete agony, fully regretting his arrogant theft of the cursed stone. The terrified British public began quietly whispering about the notorious Hindu curse. Newspapers printed sensational stories detailing the horrific deaths of every powerful man who ever touched the famous diamond. The dark history of assassinations and gruesome diseases could no longer be dismissed as mere superstition. An invisible spectral dread slowly settled over the glamorous royal family. Even the tragic young Duleep Singh, the deposed child king, could not escape the far-reaching shadows of the curse. He had been exiled to Britain and heavily manipulated into abandoning his true heritage. As he grew into an adult, a deep melancholic madness slowly consumed his fractured mind. He died completely alone in a cheap hotel room in Paris. Queen Victoria recognized the deeply unsettling pattern surrounding the infamous mountain of light. She became extremely cautious about who would inherit the massive glittering jewel after her inevitable death. She realized that no British king could ever safely place the gem upon his own royal head. She drafted a highly specific legal decree to protect future male monarchs from ruin. Her strict royal command dictated that the magnificent diamond must never be worn by a ruling British king. It could only be set into the crown of a female consort. The British monarchy quietly acknowledged the terrifying ancient prophecy written centuries ago in the dark temples of India. The curse was officially recognized by the most powerful modern empire. When King Edward ascended the throne, he absolutely refused to touch the ominous diamond. Instead, it was carefully mounted into the dazzling state crown of Queen Alexandra. When King George later inherited the massive empire, the dark gem was quickly transferred to the magnificent crown of Queen Mary. The frightened kings kept the glowing stone far away from themselves. The royal tradition of immense fear and strict avoidance continued into the modern era. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, wore the legendary diamond during the grand coronation of her husband King George VI. She carried the heavy curse on behalf of the reigning monarch. The beautiful jewel rested securely upon her head, while the nervous king remained completely safe. After the Queen Mother passed away, the sparkling crown was solemnly placed directly upon her velvet-draped coffin. Millions of mourners watched the royal procession, completely unaware of the incredible bloody history resting quietly above the deceased queen. The cursed stone sparkled brilliantly under the gloomy grey skies of London. It still hungered for the souls of arrogant, ambitious men. Today, the massive jewel sits quietly inside the heavily fortified jewel house at the gloomy Tower of London. It is trapped securely behind thick, bulletproof glass and fiercely protected by heavily armed guards. Thousands of tourists pass by the magnificent stone every single day. They marvel at its sheer size and flawless cuts without knowing its deeply sinister true nature. The ghostly victims of the diamond stretch back through endless centuries of brutal human history. Blinding and poisoning and brutal decapitations are the horrific legacy of this beautiful cursed object. The wailing spirits of fallen emperors and murdered princes remain forever bound to the cold, sparkling stone. Their tragic deaths paid the ultimate price for temporary, worldly supreme power. The British royal family refuses to return the massive jewel to its ancient homeland, despite numerous passionate requests from foreign governments. The cursed object remains locked firmly away in the cold, damp British vaults. Some historians quietly believe keeping the stone hidden away is actually a massive blessing. Returning the diamond could potentially awaken the sleeping destructive curse once again. The legendary Mountain of Light is currently waiting patiently in the dark shadows of the royal armory. It does not age, and it does not forget the ancient bloody promises made in the sweltering mud of India. The glorious diamond simply absorbs the dim ambient light and waits silently for a foolish, ambitious man to claim its terrible, magnificent power. Whenever a new British king is crowned, a wave of nervous anxiety briefly sweeps through the historical palace. The royal advisors meticulously double-check the crowns to ensure the forbidden stone is completely excluded from the royal headpieces. No modern monarch dares to test the validity of the horrific ancient warning. The terrifying fear of the stone is absolutely real. The ghosts of Nader Shah and Shah Jahan and brave Ranjit Singh serve as grim eternal reminders. Their vast empires crumbled into absolute dust, while the beautiful jewel remained completely pristine and flawless. The diamond is a beautiful parasite that feeds exclusively upon the fierce vanity of powerful men. It grants them the whole world before tearing their souls apart. If you ever visit the gloomy historic Tower of London, look closely at the magnificent sparkling stone. Look past the brilliant modern facets and peer deeply into its freezing ancient core. You might faintly see the terrifying reflections of poisoned kings and blind princes trapped forever inside the glorious trap. The mountain of light casts a very dark, cold shadow. The ancient Hindu prophecy remains perfectly unbroken to this very exact day. He who owns this diamond will own the entire world, but will also know all its worst miseries. The cursed jewel is completely invincible. It is an eternal, beautiful nightmare, carved from the very bones of the earth, just waiting for its next unfortunate royal male victim.